Hello everyone. Welcome back once again to the channel Embrace IAS. So today this will be part 2 of the Vision IAS magazine explanation. Okay. What we'll be covering today is, wait for a second. Yes, so what we'll be covering today is, in this part 2, international relations. Okay. Again, the model will be the same. I'll be explaining you whatever will be explainable, whatever is whatever things require an explanation, I'll be explaining you. And apart from this is the document for today. And it is a summarized document for the entire material, both of the shorts as well as of the main core newses. Okay, you can use it as a revision material. I've already illustrated in the class previously how you have to use it as a revision material. आज भी एक टॉपिक रिवाइज करके I'll be illustrating. ठीक है. So let's start with our international relations. The first topic is India and Sri Lanka. So what is the news? The news is recently India and Sri Lanka has released a joint statement, an economic partnership vision, which is titled as Promoting Connectivity, Catalyzing Prosperity. Okay? The name of the document is important because directly the name-based questions are asked in the examination. ठीक है. डायरेक्ट क्वेश्चंस आ जाते हैं कि ये डॉक्यूमेंट किसके बीच में साइन हुआ है. अभी जैसे हम आगे इंडिया फ्रांस देखेंगे तो हॉरिजन 2047 डॉक्यूमेंट जो है ये डॉक्यूमेंट हमने साइन किया है बिटवीन इंडिया एंड फ्रांस. ठीक है. सो यू मस्ट रिमेंबर द नेम्स ऑफ सच डॉक्यूमेंट्स. मूविंग फर्दर, मोर ऑन न्यूज. An MOU has been signed. Wait for a second. An MOU has been signed to operationalize UPI digital payments in Sri Lanka and designating the Indian rupee as currency for trade in Sri Lanka. Apart from this, in the region, Trincomalee region, I don't know if I pronunciated it right or wrong, so do bear with me. If you know the correct pronunciation, it's very good. Otherwise, we can do it. So in Trincomalee, India is supporting certain renewable energy and economic development projects in Sri Lanka. ठीक है. Trincomalee region जो है ये आपका कौन सा पड़ता है? Let us have a look in the document itself. I mentioned it. ये है Trincomalee Harbour region. ठीक है. This is the region where India is going to help with certain developmental and renewable energy projects. Apart from this, both countries have also signed an MOU to start a passenger ferry service between Nagapattinam in Tamil Nadu and Kanketsanturai in Sri Lanka. Okay, again, let us have a look in the map. Nagapattinam in Tamil Nadu, this is the region, and Kanketsanturai, this is a port that India has built in Sri Lanka's Jaffna Island. So a ferry service has to start between these two ports. So let us have a look over the India-Sri Lanka economic and connectivity ties. So overall trade, India-Sri Lanka Free Trade Agreement was signed in 1998, which came into force in 2000. India was Sri Lanka's largest trading partner with an overall bilateral merchandise trade of US dollar 5.45 billion in 2021. So India is Sri Lanka's largest trading partner till date. India is also one of the largest contributors to the FDI in Sri Lanka. Then there have been connectivity agreements like Open Sky and Air Bubble arrangements to restore the air connectivity between the two countries. Now, what are the other areas of convergence between India and Sri Lanka? So first area is trade. 2/3 of the world's oil and half of the world's container transportation passes through south of Sri Lanka. See, when we have a look over the world map, let us see this map itself. So all the transportation passes through this route. ठीक है. मिडिल ईस्ट से इधर से जो भी ऑयल आता है या जो भी एक्सपोर्ट्स आते हैं, राइस एक्सपोर्ट्स, व्हीट एक्सपोर्ट्स और ऑयल एक्सपोर्ट्स, ये इसी पाथ के थ्रू ट्रैवल करते हैं. दिस इज वन ऑफ द मोस्ट बिजिएस्ट मैरीटाइम रूट्स. अब since this Sri Lanka is located on such a strategic point कि अगर श्रीलंका एक choke point बन जाता है तो यहाँ से सारे connections are supposed to have broken. ठीक, तो इसीलिए चाइना थ्रेट भी और ज्यादा जो होता है वो डिमॉन्स्ट्रेट होता है इस रीजन, राइट. So one is the area of convergence is trade. 2/3 of the world's oil and half of the world's container transportation passes through the south of Sri Lanka. Then next is Sri Lanka is an essential partner in India's neighborhood first policy and Sagar initiative. Sagar vision is security and growth for all in the region. This is a maritime security vision of India. Then coming on to military significance. So Sri Lanka is definitely important for us. Why? Because it is at the junction of Arabian Sea and Bay of Bengal region, and it is close to the zone meant for switching off Indian naval fleets. The military exercise called Mitra Shakti and naval exercise called Slynex are conducted regularly. You need to remember these exercises very well. Cultural significance, see, we share cultural significance because of the Tamil population. Okay? But this is also one of the region of divergence. Why? Because Sri Lanka has Tamil minority. And this minority is always fighting for its rights. And if India supports this Tamil minority, India will go anti-government. Okay? Because Sri Lankan government does not support this minority. So there is a turmoil between being pro-Sri Lankan government or between being pro-Tamil minority. ठीक, 13th amendment was all about it. श्रीलंका में जो 13th amendment लाया जा रहा था, which was talking about delineation of powers to the provinces, but that amendment did not fructify and India had supported that amendment, right? Chalo, now let us see the areas of divergence. Number one, trust deficit. Understood? The Tamil minority issue. That leads to trust deficit. Secondly, its closeness to China also leads to trust deficit with India. If the government in Sri Lanka becomes pro-China, it will have trust deficits with India. Then coming on to fishing disputes, Sri Lankan Navy have been firing on Indian fishermen. There have been several incidents in the Park Strait due to the disagreements over the fishing rights and use of mechanized trawlers. In 1974, see this Kachajivo Island, Kachajivo Island, which is basically the most contentious area. This is the location of Kachajivo Island. Okay. इस पे जो था फिशिंग राइट्स हिस्टोरिकली जो थे वो तमिलनाडु के पास, राइट. But through a 1974 agreement, these fishing rights were ceded to Sri Lanka. However, the Tamil fishermen do not accept this right ceded to Sri Lanka, and they still try to fish over this region, and that is the primary cause why the Sri Lankan Navy is fighting over these fishermen, right? This is one of the issue. Then economic and political crisis in Sri Lanka. This is very much profound. ठीक है, IMF में इनको अपनी debt restructuring भी करनी पड़ गई थी, and this is the reason why China is overpowering over this country by its checkbook diplomacy. Checkbook diplomacy मतलब एक तरीके से blank checks दे रहा है ये श्रीलंका को, blind help कर रहा है with large amounts, and in exchange of it, it is going to take strategic advantage of this country. ठीक है. Then next is strategic issues due to increased Chinese presence. We have talked about it. Maritime Silk Route policy. China built the Colombo and Hambantota ports. Colombo port तो इसने लीज पे लिया है of 99 years, and Hambantota port तो built ही किया है China, right? Then the Tamil question, all about that 13th agreement. I've already talked about it. It allowed the devolution of power to provinces, but has not been implemented. So Tamil minority is still a sensitive issue in Sri Lanka. Talking about way forwards, we have to start, like we have to continue making the efforts we are already making. We have to be first responder in the case of Sri Lanka, in line with our neighborhood first policy. Then regional cooperation under the BIMSTEC and SAARC like platforms. Permanent solution for the fishermen issue. This is one of the most important thing. Then combating terrorism all together. And then building trust, because we have like Sri Lankans have a trust deficit with India, and people to people ties is always a positive development in international relations. Take it. The next is India France. So India France, again 25 years of their strategic relations they are marking. and they are making a vision document for the next 25 years. This vision document is named as Horizon 2047. Okay, Horizon 2047 framework. So it includes sectors from defense, nuclear energy, and space to eliminate the single-use plastic and a 5-year Schengen visa. Schengen visa is basically the visa to the European Union members. So India is going to get this Schengen visa. So what are these sectors? Sectors are defense, nuclear energy, and space sectors, eliminating the use of single-use plastic, and a 5-year Schengen visa for India. The two nations adopted 3 pillars focusing on security, planet, and people. ठीक, people वाला जो pillar है, this is the Schengen visa. Security वाला जो pillar है, this is defense, nuclear energy, and space. And planet वाला जो sphere है, that is about the single-use plastics. Okay, for next 25 years, we are making this document. The two countries also reinforced ties on critical technology, especially in the artificial intelligence and quantum computing, among others. Now, there are some key outcomes from the visit of PM. So, there was joint commitment to eliminate single-use plastic, ban on single-use plastic products, which is reinforced. Roadmap for the Indo-Pacific region was adopted. Opening of this is important. Announced the opening of Consulate General of India in Marseille of France and in Hyderabad in India for the country of France. ठीक है, तो मतलब फ्रांस का कॉन्सुलेट जनरल जो है वो इंडिया में हैदराबाद में खुलेगा एंड इंडिया का कॉन्सुलेट जनरल फॉर फ्रांस इन मार्सेल. So France is to support the second phase of Indian program on sustainable cities, that is Cities 2.0, co-financed with Germany and EU. Then a long-term LNG sale and purchase agreement was also signed. Okay. Timeline, you can have a look, not very much important. Now let us see the points of convergence. Number 1 is modernization of defense sector. Why this comes into picture is because France is our second largest exporter of defense equipment. First is Russia. First largest exporter of defense equipments to India is Russia. After Russia comes France. We have taken P-75 Scorpion technology and the Rafale aircrafts from France. So this means that partnership with France is going to result in modernization of our defense sector. Then the economic cooperation, France stands as 11th largest foreign investor in India with a total FDI stock of US dollar 10,389 millions. India's NPCI, International Payments Limited and France Lyra Collect signed an agreement to roll out UPI in France and Europe. So UPI rollout का agreement हमने श्रीलंका से भी किया है, फ्रांस और यूरोप में भी किया है. You can remember this. These are the countries with which we have made an agreement of rolling out UPI in these countries. India is going to help these countries to do so. Then countering terrorism with France. This is a comprehensive convention on international terrorism, CCIT, in the UN. This convention is to be adopted, for which we need help of France as a global standing. Then strengthening development. France has already allocated 200 million euros to support developmental projects in India. Then tackling climate change, India's flagship mission, International Solar Alliance, in which France is also an important partner. It is a dedicated cooperation among the two countries. Then strategic autonomy. France has always respected India's strategic autonomy. What does strategic autonomy mean in international relations is that apart from maintaining the relations with the other countries, you're also making your personal standing in the global scenario. France has always helped India do this because India's entry into Australia Group, into Wassenaar Agreement, into Missile Technology Control Regime, MTCR, has been forwarded by France. Okay? So this is this point. Then international cooperation. France also supports India's entry to permanent membership of UNSC. Okay? Then next is geostrategy. Both are committed to ensure a free and rule-based Indo-Pacific region. In 2018, India and France have signed a joint strategic vision of India-France cooperation in the Indian Ocean region, right? So now let us have a look over the challenges between India and France. France has joined the BRI of China. Belt and Road Initiative of China is one of the greatest concern for India. Why? Because it is trying to counter India. You are trying to create a kind of like a string of pearls as a part of it. They are trying to bound India among its member countries. China is trying to do this. So this is one of the most skeptic thing that India is feared about, and France is a member of Belt and Road Initiative of China. France is participating in it. Secondly, is the delivery of Rafale plane was delayed, as well as there was corruption by the middlemen. Okay. Then bilateral trade still remains very low, up to only 1.41% of India's total international trade. Then technical, financial and civil nuclear liability issues in Jaipur nuclear power reactors, which have been set up in collaboration with France. Okay. Then looking on to way forward. Way forward, these are very common points. You can have a look over it. Completing the stalled projects, free trade agreement with EU, linking the civil societies and strengthening people-to-people contact. Right. The next is NEP policy. Why does this policy come into news? The 22nd report of the Committee on External Affairs on India's Neighborhood First policy was submitted into the Parliament. So the Committee on External. Now, what is this report all about? Basically, they are trying to analyze India's Neighborhood First policy, how it has been performing till date, and how you can improve it further. Okay? So first of all, what is the neighborhood policy of India? So it is based on a consultative, non-reciprocal, outcome-oriented approach with India's neighbors. Consultative means with mutual consent. Non-reciprocal means even if the neighbors of India could not reciprocate the way India is helping out them, even then India is standing as a big brother to those neighborhood countries. Then outcome-oriented approach. Outcome-oriented approach means whatever help India is giving to those countries, if it is not fructifying into something beneficial, then India will stop doing those helps. Okay. Now, what are the principles of India's neighborhood policy? So there are 5 principles: Samman, Samvad, Shanti, Samriddhi, and Sanskriti. Very important from your mains perspective. Okay. इसमें prelims में नहीं पूछा जाएगा, but mains answer writing में you might be knowing. This will enhance your answer writing. Right? Then the next is the policies required to handle India's external threats better, achieve the necessary support in multilateral forums like the UN, curtail Chinese influence in the region, etc. So why is the neighborhood policy, why is maintaining a healthy relationship with the neighborhood important for India is, see, we have to tackle the China menace. We have to make our global standing if we want a permanent seat to the UNSC. So in all these things, we need a strong neighborhood support for us. Okay? Now, what are the challenges? Number 1, the volatility in the neighborhood. Example, the military coups of Myanmar and Pakistan. Then there is Taliban, which has made a formal government in Afghanistan. Okay? Then economic crisis in our neighborhood. Example, Sri Lanka and Pakistan. Hyperinflation rates since pandemic. Then border issues, Kashmir का issue है हमारा with Pakistan, काला पानी dispute है with Nepal, maritime disputes हैं with Pakistan and Bangladesh, as well as with Myanmar we have certain border disputes. See, it is in the next point. Infiltration and immigrant issue, we have it with Bangladesh and Myanmar because of the porous borders we have these countries. Then river water sharing agreements like Indus water with Pakistan, Teesta with Bangladesh, we have these issues. So these are the issues that we need to resolve. Committee recommendations for a better neighborhood policy. So what committee has recommended is improving the border infrastructure, improving people-to-people connect, and always keeping the diplomatic doors open with all neighboring countries to resolve any kind of arising issues. That is, you don't need to have a combat with these countries on every small issue. You must have always the diplomatic doors open or the dialogue doors open for the countries. Okay. Then continue the already taken steps in the humanitarian assistance, implementation of developmental projects, lines of credit, etc. Conclusion, the neighboring countries are usually bonded by factors like history, culture, language, and geography, and their policies have mutual implications. So trying to maintain a cordial relationship with them is essential to help India strive better in growth and development. So moving on to our next topic, which is India's energy diplomacy. I think this is an important topic. Now, what is energy diplomacy? When we talk about energy diplomacy, diplomacy attached to any word is the foreign policy steps that we are taking to achieve a domestic goal. Right? Foreign policy steps से हम एक domestic goal जब achieve कर रहे होते हैं, उसको हम diplomacy term करते हैं. So what is energy diplomacy basically? First of all, let us see why is this in news. India is considering trading power with the Southeast Asian countries through Myanmar and Thailand as a part of its energy diplomacy. So India is now considering to trade power transmission with the Southeast Asian countries via Myanmar and Thailand as a part of its energy diplomacy. That makes the news of this topic. So what is energy diplomacy? Energy diplomacy pertains to the government-related foreign activities that aim to ensure a country's energy security while promoting business opportunities related to the energy sector. It seeks to secure a sustainable source of energy for the society at large and economic growth, and use energy capacities as an instrument of foreign policy. Now, how is India pursuing our energy diplomacy? So there are basically 4 to 5 limbs to it. So first is power transmission. So we have a SAARC energy agreement on electricity cooperation since 2014. Apart from this, India also exports power to Bangladesh, Nepal, and Bhutan. Okay? So this is how we are doing it through power transmission. Then through renewable energy transmission, we have International Solar Alliance. We talked about it. Okay, International Solar Alliance is basically a flagship program. ये India France का ही collaboration है for solar energy transmission, yeah, solar power transmission. Okay, so India has one of the most very ready opportunity of becoming a global supplier of renewable energy, especially the solar energy. Why? Because there is no concentrated UN mechanism on renewable energy to bind all countries together, right? So like Middle East has been the center of power, you can say, center of power in case of fossil fuel energy. So for renewable energy, India can emerge in coming years as a as a glaring example, yeah, as a global supplier of renewable energy, right? Then One Sun, One World, One Grid initiative of India to connect different regional grids into a common grid that will be used to transfer renewable energy. Pipe connectivity, we have our TAPI pipeline, Turkmenistan, Afghanistan, Pakistan, India to transport natural gas from Turkmenistan to the remaining 3 countries. Nuclear energy cooperation, so we have nuclear deals with 2 countries, Indo-US nuclear deal and Indo-Japan civil nuclear deal. Again, remember with whatever country we have, whatever agreements. ठीक है, क्योंकि ये direct one-liner questions बनते हैं. Hydroelectric cooperation, India imports power from Tala, Chukha, Kurichu, Mangdeshu hydroelectric power plants in Bhutan, and India is also involved in the projects of Nepal, including the Mahakali Treaty, Upper Karnali project, and the Arun projects. Now, coming on to challenges of India's energy diplomacy. So, what are the challenges? Number 1 is we have a large import dependency on a single source. That is, Persian Gulf is the only region from which we have our 60% of the import of oil and gas. Then power charges. Up now, since we will have a global connectivity, ठीक है, global supply जब हम करेंगे तो global connectivity होगी, तो जो transmission charges होंगे ये mutually decide करने होंगे, right? So when it comes to deciding mutually, so there will be instances when one country will be agreeing on it and another will be denying on it. So in that situation, deciding on the transmission charges becomes challenging. Then technology constraints. The energy sector is highly technology intensive, and this factor has become an integral part of oil and gas development plans over the time. The technological constraints are again one of the problems. Cyber security is one of the problems since we are making an international grid, a global grid. So digitalization of the things will also bring cyber security threats because these are very sensitive data. Right? Then over dependence on coal, nearly 50% of our power generation is from coal, and from renewable energy, it's just 43%. Then energy infrastructure bottlenecks. See, in anything, you will have certain infrastructural bottlenecks, right? Because every infrastructure is not always kept prepared. Then way forward, you can have a reading, import diversification, geographical advantage, investment and financial resources, better monitoring and cooperation. International Solar Alliance, I've already discussed with you whatever is given over there. So you can have a reading. Then next is, our next topic of the day is strengthening the multilateral development bank. So first of all, let us see what are the multilateral development banks. So they are the supranational institutions set up by the sovereign states, which are their shareholders. So certain states coming together. States means states in global parlance, we have certain countries. Okay? So the countries coming together to set up a financial institution to fund the projects in the global scenario are known as multilateral development banks. Supranational means beyond national boundaries, right? So why does a news recently independent expert group constituted by Indian G20 presidency has presented a report on the harnessing the potential of MDBs. So some of the prominent MDBs you can have example like World Bank, Asian Development Bank, New Development Bank, Asian Infrastructure and Investment Bank. If you talk about IMF is not a multilateral development bank. Remember this. Okay? IMF is not a multilateral development bank. So the report has basically proposed a triple agenda for the MDBs. Number one is a triple mandate of eliminating extreme poverty, boosting shared prosperity, and contributing to global public goods. Number second is finance tripling the sustainable lending levels by 2030. What do you mean by sustainable lending levels is that despite giving such a huge amount in lending to the developing countries, the bank must also have enough capital to maintain itself. ठीक है, sustainable lending का मतलब है कि वो इतनी lending नहीं कर रहा है कि बैंक खुद ही डूबा जा रहा है, right? So second thing is we have to triple the sustainable lending levels by 2030, and mechanisms में जो improve करना है, that is the third funding mechanism we have to bring out. Apart from these banks, we can engage with the investors and we can have some flexible arrangements for investing into such projects. ठीक है, so we have to look beyond MDB infra itself. ठीक, तो ये जो ट्रिपल एजेंडा है, you have to by heart this thing क्योंकि ये बहुत इंपॉर्टेंट रिकमेंडेशन के फॉर्म में आप अपने आंसर्स में डायरेक्टली कोट कर सकते हो. ठीक है. Then next is the significance of MDBs. Why are MDBs important? So they stand as an international pillar to stabilize the global economy in times of crisis. So for instance, MDBs have provided $222 billion during the 2008 global economic crisis, a global financial crisis. Secondly, they promote growth in the developing and underdeveloped countries, which is otherwise not possible by their individual finances. ठीक है, developing and underdeveloped countries अपने individual finances से they cannot result in some good developmental projects. So for this, they need external financing mechanisms, and MDBs come into picture in such a scenario. Then they provide low cost and long maturity financing, right? So the maturity period for such financings are long because they're developmental loans. Take developmental loans do not give immediate returns, right? So they have long maturity period and therefore they have a low interest or a low cost financing. So spending on the sustainable infrastructure in developing countries needs to expand fourfold by 2030. MDBs can indirectly draw private investment by creating conducive conditions and developing frameworks for absorbing the investment. Now, coming on to what are the issues with MDBs, this is certainly one of the most important part of this article. देखो, पहला इशू तो आपका स्ट्रक्चरल इशू होता है. एनी ऑर्गेनाइजेशन व्हिच हैज स्पेंट सर्टेन इयर्स इनटू इट्स एक्जिस्टेंस विल हैव सम स्ट्रक्चरल इश्यूज, राइट? So first is the outdated framework of the MDBs. Second is the regional focus of some MDBs, right? Like Asian Development Bank. Asian Development Bank. So this is a bank basically to regionally focus on Asia. Now, if this bank even has finances and there's a project in Africa, and that's like a proper project which could be implemented with a very less finance, but this bank is not going to lend to Africa. Why? Because this has some regional liabilities. Okay, so regional focus of certain MDBs, then insufficient competition and coordination among MDBs. Each region has set their own specific MDBs, and lack of coordination becomes one of the important area. Then increased demands for developmental finance. राइट अब एक तो देखो रीजनली कॉन्स्ट्रेंड है ये, दूसरी चीज है डिमांड्स फ्रॉम डेवलपमेंटल फाइनेंसेस आर इंक्रीजिंग ईयर ऑन ईयर, but they do not have that amount of finances to support those demands, right? So they lack their capacities. Then new cross-border challenges such as climate change, pandemics, fragility, migration, etc. require new financial capacity and approaches. Additional spending of about 3 trillion annually for climate action and SDGs is needed by 2030 in emerging markets and developing economies other than China. So this is an amount that you will require annually for all the climate action changes and the SDGs in developing countries and developing economies, even if you leave aside China, right? That is needed by 2030 annually. So how will this come? This is one of the issue. Then financing with riders. So MDB is sometimes making favorable lendings. फेवरेबल लेंडिंग्स का मतलब है कि जो प्रायोरिटी इमर्जिंग इकोनॉमीज की है वो जरूरी नहीं है कि प्रायोरिटी एमडीबी की भी हो. एमडीबी विल एट टाइम्स गिव लोन्स टू दोज areas या to those countries which are more capable of paying back, right? So the priorities are sometimes different from the priorities of emerging economies and comes with high indirect costs related to policy conditionalities, rigid rules, and lengthy negotiations for the developing countries. Now, debate on the focus of MDBs. MDBs basically non-borrower shareholders जो हैं like US. ये लोग borrow नहीं करते, they are the shareholders basically of the banks. They are the ones who are providing the lendings. So what they are doing is nowadays US is basically on demand for removing India, China like countries from the list of developing countries. ठीक है, तो अब ये countries जो हैं जो lender nations हैं, they are pushing the MDBs to focus on the low income countries primarily. वो developing country के criteria से बहुत सी countries को निकालना चाहते हैं. So that is one of the issue. Then China's role in new MDBs with rising stature of New Development Bank and Asian Infrastructure Development Bank. China can use these MDBs to pursue its own foreign policy goals. So China itself has become a lending country in all these multilateral development banks. Concerns of the global south. So MDBs have even till date struggled to effectively assess and address problems like supply securitization of food and energy, technology transfer, energy transition, etc. The recommendations to strengthen MDBs and realize the triple agenda. So these are the same recommendations to triple agenda we have talked about in the initial lines of the document. So change in vision document of each MDB is formally adopted triple mandate of eliminating poverty, fostering shared prosperity, incorporating global public goods, increase the scale of financing, reaching $300 billion per year and 90 billion per year in concessional finance. G20 members can consider establishing a new global challenges funding mechanism. These are all the recommendations. You can have a look over these. बहुत ज़्यादा memorize नहीं करनी है, बस triple agenda याद रखना, right? Then you can see these. Operating inefficiencies देख सकते हो. Timelines for the project should be shrunk and the procedures rationalized. For instance, NDB relies on the local government approvals, and this increases the approval time to 2 to 4 years that the World Bank takes. You can construct it up to 6 months. Then upgrade knowledge and advisory services for the sustainable development. You can look for domestic resource mobilization for achieving SDGs, right? So these are some of the important points. Then coming on to SCO, Shanghai Cooperation Organization. So basically, a virtual summit of SCO has been concluded recently with the New Delhi Declaration. So you have to remember what are the points of the New Delhi Declaration, and apart from this, you know to know some factual details about SCO. SCO का headquarter Beijing, China में है. 2001 में it was formed in the Shanghai Summit. And the founder members, हाँ ये याद रखना, founder members अलग होते हैं, later added members अलग होते हैं, and it's very important to remember what all were the founder members of certain organization. ठीक है? तो फाउंडर मेंबर्स यहाँ पे थे रशिया, चाइना, किर्गिस्तान, उस समय किर्गिज रिपब्लिक था, कजाकिस्तान, ताजिकिस्तान, उज्बेकिस्तान. इसके अलावा 3 और कंट्रीज शामिल हुई हैं, ईरान, पाकिस्तान एंड इंडिया. ठीक है, प्रेजेंटली 7 कंट्रीज, राइट. सो दीज वर द फैक्चुअल डिटेल्स अबाउट इट. थीम थी इस मीटिंग की टुवर्ड्स अ सिक्योर एससीओ. सिक्योर का ये फुल फॉर्म दे रखा है, नॉट वेरी इंपॉर्टेंट टू रिमेम्बर. सिक्योर एक्रोनिम दिया था, डेफिनेटली नो वन एल्स कैन गिव. Honorable Prime Minister of India Narendra Modi gave this acronym in 2018 SCO summit. Then it was held virtually under the presidency of India. Important है, Indian presidency में था. ईरान ने as a new member join किया है of SCO. Then SCO has its own regional anti-terror structure which is named as RATS. RATS का headquarter है बिश्केक in Kyrgyzstan. ठीक है. Significance of SCO. So geopolitical significance. Why? Because SCO has China in it. SCO has countries like Pakistan in it. So it holds geopolitical significance for India through multi-alignment and maintaining strategic autonomy. It allows India to be a part of alternative economic structure in the world as sanctions by US on Iran and Russia obstruct the trade. Fostering regional stability. India has been stressing maintaining peace and security based to ensure collective prosperity of the region. So, significance of SCO lies in basically India's attempts to bring peace and security and prosperity in this region. Okay. Then strengthening the bilateral relations. Again, the countries like China, Pakistan are part of it. So it will help us improve our bilateral relations. Then regional connectivity, TAPI pipeline, INSTC, Chawar project. Right, then promoting regional trade and cultural ties. India has stated 5 pillars and focus areas of cooperation under SCO. These are startups and innovation, digital inclusion, empowering youth, traditional medicine, shared Buddhist heritage. Kashi has been declared as the first tourism and cultural capital of SCO. This is important factual information that you must remember. Abhi tak jo hum discuss kar rahe the, that was all about names. Then next is fostering counter-terrorism efforts, again because of the presence of such countries as well as SCO's own mechanism of RATS. Combating illicit drug trade, 80% of the opium and heroin supplies that originate from Afghanistan-Pakistan region can be collectively tackled by SCO countries. Then access to strategic mineral resources, SCO can increase India's access to critical natural resources because why it is possible? Because of the presence of Central Asian republics. Apart from China, Central Asian republics are the only region which are rich in critical minerals. Okay? So uranium in Kyrgyzstan and hydrocarbon resources. Now, what are the challenges with SCO? Bilateral issues among the member states, we know it. Anti-West grouping, again we know it, क्योंकि इसको anti-US grouping माना जाता है क्योंकि रशिया चाइना साथ में है in this. Project endangering India's national interest, like China's BRI, which have been like almost every country of SCO is part of China's BRI. Then there are structural challenges. SCO does not allow any bilateral dispute to be taken up. Then strengthening Sino-Russia axis. Again, Russia-China axis. Way forward, again those common points. Leveraging multilateralism for development, acting as a facilitator, as a bridge between Russia and the West, promoting national interests, maintaining foreign policy autonomy by balanced choices of strategic alliances with various regional groupings like Quad, BRICS, SAARC, ASEAN, etc. Then we have constructive role. India should promote a constructivist approach that can be leveraged to make SCO a platform of agreements rather than disagreements. Coming on to the next topic, and the last topic of the day is Black Sea grain deal. This was basically a deal which was brokered by United Nations and Turkey in July last year, when Russia-Ukraine war was going on and the global supplies of these grains was hampered. ठीक है, तो इस सप्लाई को रिन्यू करने के लिए ये डील लाई गई. सो रिसेंटली न्यूज में क्यों है? वैसे तो अभी ये डील एंड हो चुकी है and it makes the news because Russia has withdrawn from this deal. Right? Russia claims that the promises made to it under the deal have not been met and it is still facing trouble exporting its own agricultural products and fertilizers. According to Russia, Ukraine has since exported mainly to high and middle income countries and only 3% to the poor countries. तो रशिया का जो कंटेंशन है वो कंटेंशन पॉइंट ये है कि ये जो डील है वो प्रो यूक्रेन है, राइट? And Ukraine is a country which is basically exporting to high and middle income countries and not to the poor countries. Russia says कि अगर उसको वो opportunities मिलती हैं जो कि यूक्रेन को मिली हैं तो Russia is going to export it to poor countries. That is one of the contentious issue between them. Brokered by UN and Turkey, the deal tackled escalating food prices from the supply chain disruptions due to effective blockage of the Black Sea. It provided a safe maritime humanitarian corridor for the Ukrainian exports, particularly for the food grains from 3 of its key ports, namely Chornomorsk, Odisha, and Yuzhny or Pivdini. Important to remember the names of these ports. The deal was for a period of 120 days, or you can call it as 4 months. With an option to extend or terminate. It was extended 2 times, but now terminated since Russia has withdrew itself from the deal. The impacts of the closure of the deal. Inflation in food prices again, because this is still a war area. Impact on the Ukraine's farmers. Unequal impact on the poor. The World Food Programme and the Food and Agricultural Organization warned that acute food insecurity is escalating, affecting as many as 828 million people worldwide. Least developed countries are disproportionately at a risk of food insecurity. Then impact on edible oils in India. The Indian imports of sunflower and soybean oils to meet domestic demand has been hampered. Since the suspension of the deal, sunflower oil prices have risen because this comes from the same region. Shortfall of fertilizers. Sunflower और soybean oil इस region से आता है, palm oil आता है हमारा South East Asia से. ठीक है? Then shortfall of fertilizers. It may intensify as Russia and Belarus are one of the world's largest sources of mineral fertilizers. And since the supply chains have been disrupted, so there will be a shortfall of fertilizers in the future. Way forward, you can see international cooperation is needed to solve the ever-increasing conflict between Russia and Ukraine. Then apart from this, you need to strengthen and reform United Nations. War in Ukraine, climate change and human rights issues have shown the need for United Nations reform to represent the entire international community. Then strengthening the global food supply chain, the nation needs to adopt a cognitive planning, AI-driven predictive analytics, advanced track and trace, and the blockchain technologies to improve the global supply chains. Understood? So this is it with today's work. Baki, I'll be providing this document. This document has summarized the entire shorts as well as the main topics for you. You can use it as a revision material, right? Okay, this is a 14-page document. It is having all the even the shorts uses that have been mentioned in the magazine, right? So you can revise from it once you have done it single-handedly from the magazine. Why? Because this has certain pointers formats. तो आपको paraphrasing में याद नहीं करना, आपको उतनी मेहनत नहीं करनी है shorts prepare करने के लिए. Okay, so see you in the next video. Do like, share, and subscribe if you like our initiative, and promote it at a larger scale, right? So see you in the next video. Good luck till then.